you can see a dial down here, and that you want to turn that dial to the up position. So that engages the battery with the boat. And while you're down here, take that plug that you just unplugged and drop it down inside there and close the seat. Okay? Next, what we're going to do is you want to make sure you find this. This is the up down, the remote up and down for the lift. Okay, so you're gonna find that. If you look over here, you're gonna see a bunch of little pins. First thing I would do is turn on the bilge blower. What that does is that blows out all the fumes from the engine compartment, and usually want to run that for a minute or two before you start. Okay. Then next, you're going to take these the key. Okay, and it's a smaller key, and sometimes this thing gets kind of turned around, but you want to get it in there like that. Okay, and turn it a little bit. Okay, and you'll hear a beep, and the green light will come on. And that's about the time you can look at the dashboard, and it'll say everything's okay. You'll see the fuel gauge is at full here. It'll show you a bunch of information about the battery and so forth. Okay, you don't typically need to pay much attention to that. You also have something called the trim, and the trim is important, and I'm going to show you what that is and why you need to know that. Okay, so I also want, before we get started, to show you the throttle. Okay, this is the throttle. You push in this gray part to go for, or to engage the throttle, and then you push forward to go forward and back to go back. And then there's a second little button here, and that's for the trim. And we'll be basically, think of that as the angle of the motor. So the motor is up right now. We'll lower it down as we get into deeper water. Okay, you want the motor up a bit so that it doesn't hit the bottom, because it's kind of shallow here. So one other thing that I've made the mistake of more than once, this little thing here is called the run key, and if you were really in choppy waters, you might connect this thing to your life preserver, and then if you fell out or something, or you got bumped out of the way or whatever, it would trip the switch, and the motor would not run then. It would cut it off automatically. If that thing is down, nothing will happen with this, and you're trying to figure out what's wrong with the boat. The truth is, nothing's wrong with the boat. It's just somehow the kill switch went on. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the bilge blower now, and I'm going to start the boat. So the boat, typically what I would do is I would take the key, and I'll go ahead and do that now. I'm going to lower it down until the boat is really floating all by itself. And then I usually either will push the boat out backwards, you know, just by hand, which for a beginner I might recommend, and then start up the boat. But if the boat doesn't start up, then you're floating out there by yourself. So I can tell that the boat is starting to float all by itself because it's just kind of starting to bob around a little bit. Once you're sure that it's down far enough, then you're going to turn this key. And when you turn the key, you're going to hear the engine turn over. Let it run a little bit. See, the trim is on up. You can look at some of the dials, make sure that you got plenty of fuel. You can see that the engine temperature is cold because I just started it. You want the battery sort of in that 12 to 14 range ideally, which is kind of where it is. And now we're going to engage the engine and we're going to back out. Okay, so if you look, I'm going to push in on this gray button and I'm going to go backwards. Okay, so just one click, real simple, and you can see that we're going backwards. Watch, look at the deck here, the dock. And I put it right back, go back down here. So I put it right back into neutral. I went from reverse to neutral, and I'm turning it around carefully. Now I wouldn't go straight out on that point because it's very shallow on that point. So what I like to do is I like to turn the boat around using, you know, pretty much in one place, just in one place, kind of a little bit of backwards and then a little bit of forwards. And as you can tell, I'm just barely moving the thing forward. Just enough so that the engine is propelling itself forward. Now, one of the things you might want to look at is, you can zoom in a little bit, is in the mode, it has a number of different settings. The most important setting on this lake is the depth. So we're at 5.9 feet, 6.2 feet. So once you're down beyond 6 feet, then we're going to lower the trim. And the trim is the angle of the engine. So I'm going to push down on this button, and if you look up here, you'll see that just push that down. You want the trim all the way down because now the engine is all the way down and the propeller is going to make the most movement. Okay, so now I'm moving forward. You can turn around and you can see where the house is. Okay, and what you want to do is you can you use this gray button again. You push in on that, and now you can pick up some speed. All of the good skiing areas and inner tubing areas are beyond the bridge, and the bridge has an area where you're supposed to slow down to go, you know, with no wake under the bridge. But another really nice area to try in this direction with it, which is west. But you can't go too far up there, and you have to watch your depth gauge carefully because we're in about 12 and a half feet here. So now I'm going to show you how to dock the boat. So you can see up ahead is our boathouse. It's easy to identify because of the steps that are over to the left. Okay, so what I like to do is, even when I'm pretty far out, I like to sort of begin to line up and go kind of slow, especially if you're a newcomer to this. And it's really helpful if you have people that are up toward the front of the boat that are going to grab the big white pillars that prop up the roof. But don't let them put their hand between the boat and the dock, because we've had people do that before and they hit their hand, the boat hits their hand between, and it's bad. So don't let them do that. Now, so now I'm probably
don't reach back when you're doing it, because we had somebody break their wrist when they did that.
That was what I was saying.
Yeah.
So now I'm probably 100 yards away from the boathouse, and it gets shallow as you get toward our boathouse. So I have to bring the trim back up, and so to do that, I just go to that little button. I push the up button, and you can see that the trim is coming up like that. Now I'll take it about 2/3 of the way up or so, and that's good enough, because then you still want it down enough so that it'll propel the boat. You just don't, you want it pointed up. You'll hear it a little louder in the back as it kind of flushes the water upwards. So now I go real slow. Basically, I'm just one click ahead of neutral, and I'll just kind of move my way toward. Now it's important to know which direction the wind is blowing, because the wind will blow the boat. So you're going to point a little bit slightly into the wind, and I kind of go back and forth between being in neutral and being in you know, forward drive, and I'll do that a couple times until I'm pretty sure I got it lined up. Now today it's a very calm day, so I don't have much of an issue with either wind or waves. If it's really wavy, it's not so easy to get in this little slip, but you can do it. You just need to take your time, and if you need to, just back up. So I'm a little bit too far over, but I think we should be able to pull this off. Right about here, I might actually cut the engine. So I'll just turn off the key, and I'll let the boat slip in. And you look at me over here, you can see I'm using these to guide us in. I'm using my hands up high, not down low. I'm using my hands up high. And then I'm stopping the boat, if you look in the front, about 3.5 feet or so, 3 to 4 feet back from the very front of the slip. Because if you pull up too far and then you lift the boat up, you're gonna, the engine will be resting on the support. Then I use this to go up. And that's it.